Hey guys, Chairman here. So this last weekend was BCS Chicago. I went, participated, and I got third place. So for the first time since 2022, I have finally made it back to the world stage. The past 2 years, I have topped, but I immediately lost in the first round. This time I was finally able to make a deep run, so I'm very happy to report my success. And yeah, the deck I took for this event was Bane Dream. Now, with a bit of a twist, because I have decided on a Bane Dream deck that basically nobody else has ever played. I haven't seen this list in Japan. I have not really seen this list elsewhere. And I think it's the best Bane Dream deck, personally. And so I'm here to share it with you guys. And yeah, let's just get straight to it. So, my list and my matchups are on my Twitter. So if you want to just get a good rundown of all of that, you can go check that out. But basically, the core of this deck is very similar to the Bane Dream deck that we profiled on this channel that Randall, went over, which is basically the meta deck. This is level 1 Oblivionis into level 3 Dolores. And much of the core concept of this deck is similar to that deck, except the top end I've completely switched out for Tomori and Anon. So this finisher is, on paper, it looks kind of silly. It's one of those finishers that has a bit of like a funny mechanic to it. So let me explain the combo. So we can start with Anon. So Anon's climax combo effect is when she gets a reverse, you can clock kick the character opposing her. And she has a non-climax combo effect. When she gets a reverse, she can also swap positions with any front row Tomori that you have. So if you have a Tomori in the front row, after she gets reversed, she can swap places with the Tomori. Now the Tomori has the ability at the end of her attack, a climax combo, you can pay 3, discard a copy of the Anon from your hand in order to stand the Anon. So the whole idea of this package is that Anon gets a reverse in one lane, she swaps with a Tomori, the Tomori now directs in that lane, resends the Anon, and then Anon has another character to clock kick in this lane. And you can do this up to twice, because you can kick this lane and then swap with like a Tomori over here. So you basically can clock kick every single lane and get up to 5 attacks. That's basically this climax combo. So I think this climax combo is really, really good. I think this is just the best combo in English. On my tweet, I made a little bit of a joke. I said that if you're not playing, or if you're still playing the Dolores finisher, then you're behind. This is like a meme, but I sincerely believe it. I actually do think that if you're not playing this combo, you're probably behind the curve in terms of what the power level of English could be. Now, the first point I want to address is I might be facing some criticism from some people in the community saying, oh wow, Simu is just cooking here in his kitchen again. He's just coming up with these crazy ideas that only he could, play. Like, this isn't actually good. If this was actually good, then why did Japan not discover this whole time, right? Japan has had this set for like over a year at this point. Why hasn't Japan figured this out? Well, I mean, barring my personal opinions, I think a really big reason why Japan probably just never considered this package to begin with is because their ban list is not the same as our ban list. When Bane Dream Maigo Avimuja came out, there was a very important set of cards on the ban list, and that is the Stock Swap and the Fumio. Well, these cards have been banned in Japan for like years at this point, like maybe 2, maybe more years. These cards have just never been able to be played in the same deck, and these are really powerful decompression tools that Japan basically just has not been able to play with for the longest time, and we've had this entire time basically. And now the important thing with Japan's usage of these cards is that even in the current list, Japan is a pick one of 3, which is between, not this one, but between these 3 cards. So it's the Stock Swap, the Fumio, and the level 1 Sakiko Changer into the Oblivionis combo. Now, Japan sometimes still picks the Changer, and when they pick the Changer, they basically always pick the Changer with the Dolores top end, because the Dolores top end doesn't require your opponent to be decompressed to deal a lot of damage. In fact, Dolores actually wants your opponent to have some level of compression so that her attacks can cancel. So in the Dolores decks, the Stock Swap and the Fumio have like pretty negative, or not negative, but like very, very low returns for their value. It's like actually not that important. Obviously, if most Japanese decks are choosing the Buns for Luck or the Stock Swap, and when they're choosing the Stock Swap, they're either playing the Oblivionis without the Sakiko Changer, in which case they're either playing like some events, or they're just playing a different level 1 combo entirely. Most Japanese decks are just basically not choosing Arisa at all. Now we have all of these cards available. Like we're playing the Changer, we're playing both Sockswap and Fumio, and as a result, we can prioritize this because this is like way stronger than Dolores. Like Dolores by herself is just like it's really sacky. Basically, the biggest complaint with Dolores is that like she's like a very high ceiling, very low floor, and the rest of the deck is super consistent. Level 0, level 1, level 2, all very strong, powerful cards that are very consistent, have really good return for their value. But then if you play Dolores top end, you're basically throwing it all away at the end with like random die roll, right? Like Dolores can either kill your opponent from level 1 if they cancel all their swings and take all the burns, or Dolores can fail to kill from like 3-3 if they just cancel 4 times and eat 1 swing. So it's like the disparity is so crazy, right? And the thing with that is that like the Sockswap and the Fumio don't even help like making Dolores more consistent, because these are just more like randomness piled on top of the Dolores randomness, right? Whereas with Tomori and Anon, you have like a very consistent amount of damage. It's 3 clock kicks, so 3 guaranteed damage and 5 attacks. So like that's very consistent damage, and the Sockswap Fumio decompression really plays on top of that. And so like you have a lot of damage coming through after your decompression to like it's like a really consistent amount of damage. You basically like you have a very high chance of killing your opponent from basically any point in the game. Like when you assemble the full combo, like you have a very high certainty of lethal. And one thing that's really cool about this package is that it feels like it's almost made to like abuse Sockswap Fumio, because first of all, the colors, you can see that like we have blue for both the Tomori and the Arisa, as well as the red for both the Anon and the Sockswap. And like the Dolores build, you don't really need blue in that build at all, and so like it's kind of like a waste to play blue. But in this deck, you kind of have both of these colors already, and so it plays very nicely into colors. The Tomori on play effect, you can salvage a character. And so if you don't need to salvage like the Anons or any other piece, you can just salvage Arisa. You just get Fumio into your hand. And that's like a very guaranteed way to get it. Otherwise, in other decks that aren't playing like a on-play salvage, you have to like sculpt the Fumio. That's usually not something that you can prioritize very early. As well, Anon on play, she is draw 2, ditch 2, blind stock 1. In which case, it helps you draw into the Sockswap. You have extra like draws that can get you into events that are harder to draw normally. And like the Dolores deck, if you want to have the Sockswap, you basically have to grip it in your hand the entire time, or you have to like level it and then swap into it with like the 1-0 Chisato, which is like just kind of like a very unnecessarily overkill way of getting Sockswap in your hand. Whereas this deck, you just very naturally get into it. And another very important card that we play alongside the Anon to help draw is the Rui. The Rui also on play is a draw ditch, and both of these cards we can really abuse to help us draw into events, climaxes, and other stuff. So the top end of this deck is just really, really synergistically made to abuse Sockswap Fumio, which is kind of like the design of this deck. So this is probably the main reason why Japan has never considered this, is because the payoff for playing this package was just never available in Japan. So maybe give it a shot, because again, English is a different environment. We have a very different ban list, we have a very different meta. So like just because Japanese people didn't discover this deck doesn't mean it doesn't have the potential to be the best thing in English, right? So what's the saying? Like don't scoff at it until you give it a shot. So moving on, I would like to go over some basic combos that you need to know to like really access like the potential of this deck. So I'm gonna go over 3 combos. I'm gonna go over a bread and butter basic combo. I'm gonna go over like a very low econ, like what do you do if you're like really having a bad game combo, and then I'm gonna go over like the ultimate mega, like everything you can possibly do in this deck combo. And hopefully you guys can see the light in terms of like just how powerful this top end really is. Alright, so for the bread and butter combo, you're gonna need in your hand 2 copies of the Tomori, 2 copies of the Anon, the Rui, and the Climax. And you're gonna also need a 3rd copy of Anon in the waiting room for later access. So that's 6 specific cards, which means that you can start level 3 turn with 4 cards, and then draw into 6 cards. And even though these are pretty specific cards, you'll find that you have a lot of filter options during the course of this turn to get all the pieces that you need. And for this bread and butter combo, we're actually only going to need 4 stock, which means if you have more than 4 stock, any extra stock can be used for brainstorms or any other things you need to help make this combo, or like extra pieces you can add onto this combo. Alright, so the first thing is we're going to start off with the Rui. So Rui's on play effect, if you have 2 or more other characters, you can draw 1, ditch 1. So this basically gives you a filter towards any of the pieces still in our hand. So if we don't have all these 5 cards, but we draw into one of these, then the filter basically gets us extra digs, right? So draw 1, ditch 1. Then we're going to use the Rui's effect. We're going to pay 1, send Rui to the waiting room to choose a character from our hand, our level or lower, and play out for free. Obviously, we're level 3, so we can play the Tomori out here and basically make Tomori cost 1 less stock. Now, Tomori's effect is going to activate. We're going to salvage a character. We're going to get the Rui back into our hand, and then we're going to use the second part of the effect, an additional pay 1, to choose an Anon from our hand and summon out for free. Now, that basically makes Anon cost also 1 stock less. Anon's effect, on play, we can draw 2, ditch 2. So that's 2 more filters towards any of the cards in our hand. If one of these is one of these cards, then that means that, you know, we don't need them in our hand to begin with. Draw 2, ditch 2, and then blind stock 1. So we're back to 3 stock. At this point, we're going to play the Rui again. Rui is going to give us another draw ditch, a 4th filter. And then we're going to use the Rui effect, pay 1, send the Rui to the waiting room to play out the Tomori. Now this Tomori, we're not going to salvage the Rui at this point. We're going to salvage the Anon to have the 2 Anons in our hand for the 3 attacks. So the way this combo is going to work is we're going to play the Climax, and then we have the Soyo effects. We usually want to stack these on the Anons because the Anon is going to get 3 attacks, so we can use this to help sculpt for triggers, or even like if we don't have, let's say we still don't have one of the Anons in our hand, we can try to stack all the effects on the Anon to try to trigger a door to salvage the Anon back. But in this case, we have the 2 Anons, so we stack all the effects to Anon. Anon's going to attack first. We get a stock, we kick, and then we swap with the Tomori. The Tomori is going to direct attack here. We get a stock, and the Tomori attack, we pay 3, discard one of the Anons, restand the Anon. That Anon is now going to be able to attack in this lane, get the kick. Once she gets the reverse, she's going to swap with this Tomori. Tomori is going to direct attack here. End of this Tomori's attack, we're going to pay 3, discard the Anon in our hand, restand this Anon. Anon's going to get a final attack and a final clock kick. So this is the bread and butter combo. Only 4 stock, only 6 hand, and you can get 5 attacks, 3 clock kicks. And yeah, I mean, this is pretty easy. And so if you can do this every game, you're gonna be able to kill very consistently from level 3, pretty consistently even from 2-5. Because if you think about it, if they're 2-5, you get 3 guaranteed clock kicks to 3-1. So that means that they have to cancel 4 of your 5 attacks in order to live, which is really good for you, not very good for them. And you can do this with only 4 stocks, so that's a really easy combo to assemble. As long as you can sequence it all correctly, it should be no problem. Alright, now what happens if you're having a really bad game? Let's say you're having a really bad game and you enter level 3 with only 2 stock. You're like, oh my gosh, I only have 2 stock. There's no way I'm going to be able to mount like an actual final turn. It's over. Like I got hit to 3-6. I don't have 2 stock. Like I can't make a push. Well, don't worry. This deck actually has a very respectable final turn with only 2 stock, and just kind of gets to show you just how like efficient and lean this deck can play. So you'll need just 1 Tomori in this case, but you'll need as many Anons as you can. Of course, if you have them all in your hand, that's great, but again, we have ways to get to them by either drawing or ditching and other stuff. If they're in your waiting room, you can salvage it with like the brainstorms if you're like at 3 stock. Because you need 4 stock to do the other play, so if you're at 3 stock, then you can't do that play, but you could do this play and still have an extra stock for the brainstorm. So we're going to start off the plays as we always do with the Rui. The Rui gives us a draw ditch into one of our cards. Same thing as before, we pay 1, summon out the Tomori. Tomori's effect, going to pay 1, summon out the Anon, and also salvage the Rui back. Whoops, almost forgot about that. Anon's effect, we're going to get 2 draws here and a blind stock. And now we're going to play the Rui back again. Rui is going to give us another filter, draw ditch. We're going to use the Rui this time, pay 1, send it to waiting room for our second Anon. Now this second Anon is going to draw 2, ditch 2. With another filter, and we're going to get a blind stock 1. And now this stock we actually don't need because we can actually do 4 attacks and 3 clock kicks starting with 0 stock. Because as long as we attack with both Anons first and then the Tomori can restand either of the Anons with all 3 stock that we use. So we have an extra stock, and this extra stock can be used for either a brainstorm, or you could use a stock swap, or you can play the 2-1 Saya at this point to give one of your characters the anti-event or backup. So basically you just have an extra stock that we can use on this turn. And same thing happens here. We're going to go ahead and play the Climax. We can assign the crucial effects anywhere we want, but basically we attack with the Anons first to get 2 stock, And then when we attack with a Tomori, even if we don't have the stock, let's say we just, you know, we use it on a brainstorm or something, we go to 3 stock, and then end of this card's attack, pay 3, discard the last Anon in our hand, and we can choose which of these Anons to stand. So let's say, like, what if we attack with these ones first? This one got reversed because they countered or whatever, but this one was able to get the reverse. Then we can swap it over here, and then this one would be standing this one, or we could even stand this one again, even though it got reversed, and now it got plus 2,000 power, and we can try to beat the lane again. So this, we still get 4 attacks, and we still get up to 3 clock kicks, but we only started with 2 stock, and you can see we still mounted like a pretty formidable final turn, and we had 6 cards filtered this time, so like even more chances to draw into like the climax. Let's say we started with no climax, we're like, oh no, it's over. Like this might be a better board to go for because we get additional draws into trying to draw that climax if there's just no way to get to the climax. So you can see like this, the individual pieces of this finishing board is so powerful on their own. When you combine them together in different ways, you can really unlock the potential of this deck. Alright, for the final combo, this is going to be the full combo guide. This is basically everything you can possibly do in this deck on the final turn to just get your maximum setup. And this is going to require 10 cards in hand, which means that you cannot do this without having like a brainstorm hit beforehand, or you know, do some other way to increase your hand size. But you only need 7 stock, which means that, like, you know, if you have 8 stock, you hit 1 brainstorm, bam, you're golden. So like this is actually pretty feasible to do, especially with how much stock this deck can generate. Like if you start with 10 stock, then like it's so easy to assemble this combo, you know. But basically, yeah, we need the 2 Tomori, 3 Anon, the Rui still, climax, stock off Fumio, and then the 2/1 Saya. And you know, obviously, if you don't need one of these in-game pieces, let's say they have 1 card left in deck, so the Fumio is not very useful in that situation, then or sorry, is that the case? No. 1 card left in deck is, yeah. If they have 1 card left in deck and Fumio is not very useful in that situation, then you just cut the Fumio, and that means you can save on a hand and a stock. Or like, let's say you know your opponent doesn't play backups and you don't need the 2/1 Saya, then you don't have to play the 2/1 Saya, and now it's like way easier to do the full final combo. Okay, but let's just get started. So as with every single combo in this, we start with the Rui. That's how important this Rui is. Okay, a Rui on play, draw ditch, get the filter, pay 1 on the Rui, summon out Tomori. So the early part is just going to be very similar to the bread and butter combo. Salvage back the Rui, additional pay 1, summon out the Anon, Anons draw 2, ditch 2, blind stock 1. Now at this point, depending on how you want to sequence it, you can go for the stock swap into the Saya if you want to keep your Soyos on board, if you want to keep the effect. But in this combo, I'm going to show off what if we want to get Anon to be as large as possible to get over something like a big wall. So, but just know that at this point, you can go for a stock swap Saya if you want to. But instead we're going to go for the Rui. It's going to give us another draw ditch. And then we're going to go ahead, pay 1. Oops, pay 1, send the Rui to the waiting room, play the Tomori effect, grab the Rui back again. And at this point, now we are going to go for the Saya. So we're going to play the Saya down. Now remember, Saya needs an event in the waiting room to activate the effect. So if you don't have the event now, we're going to go ahead and play the stock swap. Pay 1 for the stock swap. And, you know, get the stock swap. And like, let's say we don't have like the climax still or whatever, we can go ahead and play the Rui down here for another draw ditch. And then we can tap Saya and Rui to give the effect to the to the Anon. Now Anon basically now has anti-event, anti-backup for her attacks. She's going to attack in every single lane, which means that all the lanes are going to be anti-event, anti-backup. And at this point, we're going to use Rui for the final time, send Rui to the waiting room, and to bring out Arisa. Arisa effect is going to rest herself to do the Fumio. And now our hand is set up with both Anons for discard at the climax. And Anon now has a ton of power. So remember, Saya is a level support, so 1500. Arisa is goal of 15, so now she's 13. Saya also gives an additional 500 with her effect, so she's 13.5. With the climax, she's going to be 14.5 on the first attack. And because the Tomoris give her an additional 2k attack on restand, she can be 14. If she moves over here, it's going to be 14 again because she loses, or not 14, it's going to be 14.5. She loses 15, gets 2k, so she's going to be 15 if she moves over here. But her final attack over here is actually going to be 18.5. So the last attack, she's going to be 18.5, no backups, no events. Like, there's just nothing that is going to survive this Anon. She is going to be absolutely massive. So yeah, like that's the full combo. Like you do this, like you win the game. I'm pretty sure. Like your opponent could be like probably level 1 and still die like to a good stock Fumio, 5 attacks, 3 clock kicks, like, and like there's no counterplay to this. They can't event, they can't back up. You just beat like all the rest counters, anti-damage, like whatever, right? And then like there's no walls that are going to be able to stand up to like 18-5 on the final attack. So, and you know, as you can see, there's a lot of like really cool things you can do. And again, if you don't need all these pieces, then you don't need all these pieces. You can just drop the Stock Swab, or drop the Fumio, or drop the Saya, or even like if you want to like change a Tomori instead, and like you don't have a Climax in your hand, you're like, okay, I can't do the second Tomori, I'll just play the Anon and grab the Climax. Like there's so much customization for your final turn that like you're never screwed. You're basically never screwed, and you can always assemble basically the best board for every situation and just go for a kill. Oh yeah, before I forget, the on effects are all optional. So like, if your opponent tries to play around you, let's say they play around you by going like, they have like empty characters here, and they only have 1 lane that you can get a reverse in. So like, you know, let's say like they crash 2 lanes and they have 1 lane. And so this way, like, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna force the Anons to direct a bajillion times, and like, she's gonna be swinging for 6 and something, and like, you know, we're gonna cancel. You just don't have to kick. So all you do is you attack with the Anon, and then you don't clock kick. You attack with the Tomori, you just restand the Anon. So you just keep restanding the Anon on this lane to just always swing for 3. So you miss the clock kicks until the, so you only get 1 clock kick on the last one, because like if it's a level 0, it's like the best, because you can side front on the last one to get the kick. But even if it's like a level 3, you just front, don't kick it, and so you miss out on the clock kicks, but you still get 5 attacks, and your attacks are going for 3, which is like a really good number. So like that's still fine. But like alternatively, also if like your opponent tries to crash board against you, you can just go for 1-1 and then like the 3 to the other unknown for the burn, right? And so like this way, like you're also like decreasing the amount of like direct attacks you're doing, and you're still doing extra damage here. So like even if they're crashing board against you, it's like really hard to play around this deck basically. All right, we're gonna round off this deck profile with just a quick card by card of the entire list. I'm gonna go pretty quickly because I assume most of you guys already know what the cards do. If you don't know what the cards do, I would recommend you guys watch the meta deck profile on this channel first. I think Randall does a great job like explaining the basics of this deck, and it's pretty much the same thing. I'm just gonna go over like the specific stuff for this deck and like my decision making for like the ratios and stuff like that. So yeah, so starting from level 0, we're gonna go with 4 copies of the Riki. Now, I pretty quickly moved off of the Mocha because I really don't like the Mocha. It can be denied very easily. The timing's really bad. On death is way worse than on play. And I think on play Riki is just like super important for this deck, being able to like hit yourself to level 1 or hit yourself to level 3 without having to like overplay a bunch of stuff, and it just gives you a lot of really good access to basically everything you want. And also her second effect is kind of broken because like sometimes you just randomly bounces back to your hand and just gets you an extra card for free. So definitely still really like the on play Riki. I would choose it. Also in this deck we do need the blue too, so it's like it's not wasted in this deck. 4 copies of the Timoris. This is not mandatory, but I mean, she's a broken card. And it's really funny because a lot of times we have extra cards in our hand on final turn because of just the nature of this deck. You only need to discard the Anon, so like anything else in your hand that's not Anon, it just rots in your hand on final turn. So what you can do is you can like play over a bunch of Timoris on final turn and just like mill through your deck, and then that also like loads up your waiting room with targets for like your Tomori to salvage or your brainstorms and stuff like that. So this is just a really good card. I think I would still keep this at 4. I think this is like really, really good. But if you wanted to play something else in this slot, like Lock is pretty popular in lists right now, or if you want to play more like Amoris or like whatever, like this is just it's a pretty flexible slot. All right, 3, so your brainstorms, this is pretty standard. I think this is just the best brainstorm for the deck. Works really well with both level 1 and level 3 climax combos. Alright, 2 Rui. This used to be a 1 of, and then I quickly bumped, or not quickly, but like basically in the last minute, I bumped this up to 2. And I'm so glad I did, because like this card came up so often at 2 copies that like I was like, okay, thank God I bumped it up to 2. But you can play 1, I would be playing 2. I think 2 feels really good. But I did cut a climax swap to bump this up to 2, and that definitely felt bad because I definitely missed climax swap this tournament. One of each Oblivionis and Amoris. So this is clean cut. This is the Freezer 3500 beater. A lot of people like this card a lot. I actually don't personally because I almost never use like the second effect to send a character from stage to waiting room to reveal top because I feel like it's pretty risky. Like if you miss, then you just like lost a character for free that could have just soaked up some damage. Because the way I play this deck is I try to take as little damage as possible and like push my opponent to 3 first. And so like it's kind of weird to like use this effect to like sack a board. This does come up at level 2 if your opponent, like if you think your opponent's going to try to like crash all their lanes to deny you on reverse effects, you can try to sculpt this to sack your lane so that they can't crash into that lane. So it can come up, and this card is like, it's good in that way, but I just don't value it very highly personally. I value like the clean cut way more. So many games I'm just like rekeying for this, and then using this to clean cut a brainstorm just to like attack very efficiently. But like these are just both good at 1 because you can always rekey for them, and you can up them if you want. If you don't want, it's all pretty like optional. But I would definitely keep at least 1 of each. And then for the utility cards, 1 each of these 3. Drop Surge, and then Ditch Climax Salvage, the Helmet, and the Climax Swap. I really wish I had a second copy of Climax Swap, and I'm not sure how I'm going to get a second copy in. I might cut a rekey, but honestly, 4 rekey felt really good all weekend, so like, yeah, I don't know how to get a second Climax Swap, but I would probably play 2 if I could. But the Taki came up a lot. You know, I got Climax flooded a ton. She's really, really helpful. And then obviously Helmet is Helmet. Just really good utility card for this deck. Alright, so that's all our level 0s. We're running 18 level 0s. Level 1, 4 copies of Oblivionis, 4 copies of Changer. Pretty self-explanatory. You basically just, yeah, you just run 4/4 if you can. You could cut like a Changer. I maybe Changer for a Climax Swap, but honestly, like 4 Changers just feels really good. Like it's just so important. Like there are games where I was running 4/4 and I was still like not able to do triple combo because like I just got really unlucky. So yeah, I just play 4/4 if you can. Saya, this card is like one of the linchpins of this deck. It's like, this deck abuses the Saya so much, right? Just like anti-event backup all the lanes, beats Overlord, beats Nikkei, beats any deck that has like any kind of interaction. So like super, super strong card. Obviously to stock swap because why are we playing Bane Dream if we're not playing stock swap? Like just abuse the Bane Dream good cards. All right, 4 copies of Mortis. A lot of decks run 2, some decks run 3. I was testing 2 for the longest time, but then basically last week I upped it to 4 because I realized that against Dolores decks, the way this deck wants to win is basically we want to spam early play heals more than them because the Dolores deck requires more resources for their final turn. They need either more stock or more hand than us, and we need just less of both, right? And so we have the kind of the leeway to spam more early play heals and still like threaten like a full combo, whereas like if they try to match our healing, then they're not going to have a very strong final turn. And the nice thing about Mortis that again in that matchup is that we're also, if we spam these to board, we're also denying them easy Wiko reverses, so they either have to commit to like the back row, the 2/1 to pump power, or they have to like play Climax every turn to try to like climb the Mortises. And if that's the case, then like it just makes their like final turn a little bit worse. Otherwise they just don't get the time machines, and that's like really good for us. So even though like normally speaking in other matchups you don't really want to play these down because like then your opponent's gonna like triple crash into these things, and then you don't get reverses, but like in the Dolores matchup you do want these on the board. And then sometimes like depending on the game state, right? Like let's say your opponent, like if you can hit your opponent level 3 while fielding a bunch of these and like healing down to low 2, then they're probably still gonna have to go for a combo. They use their combo to try to kill you, they don't kill you, and then now they have their level 3 board that you can clock kick and stuff like that. But another important thing to know is that like you can play these down, heal, and then just play level 1 combo over them again and just combo again. Like that's like a totally viable like play, and depending on the situation that's probably the right play. So but like yeah, I definitely liked it at 4. After I bumped it up, I felt like I just had a lot more like security and comfort into a lot of matchups, especially into the Bane Dream mirror, that like it really helped me a lot this weekend. And so yeah, finishers, 3 copies of Tomori, 4 copies of Anon. You basically always need 1 more Anon than Tomori, so either 2 Tomori, 3 Anon for like the 5 attack turn, or 1 Tomori, 2 Anon for the 4 attack turn. So you basically, like I think in ratios you just need 1 more Anon than Tomori, and you don't really need the 4 Tomori at all. So yeah, like I tested 4 Tomoris and like it was like really obviously a brick. So yeah. one copy of the Lost Girls Band Unknown. This card is broken. Like every Bane Dream deck should have this card in it. Like salvages climax, salvages character, does extra burn. Like it's like so broken. And of course the Arisa Fumio. So yeah, that's the deck. Pretty streamlined, but there's definitely room to kind of like change ratios around if you want to prioritize something else. You know, like definitely this is like not like locked into place in terms of 50 cards, but I think the idea is like pretty clear. And like the cards I would not cut is like obviously you need the finishers, you need like the payoff cards like the Stocks off Fumio, as well as like the Saya. Obviously Anon is like uncuttable. Rui is like probably the linchpin that like clues the finishers and like the early plays. Like Rui also discounts your early play. So like it's like just such a really good card in this deck. And then obviously level 1 combo and stuff. But like everything else you can like play what you like. It's not too important for like the way this deck works. But I think this pile really served me well. It's like just a very optimized pile in my opinion. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions or comments, and just feel free to sound off below. Yeah, I mean, I just had a really great time. Unfortunately, I only lost to one person all weekend, which was Carmen, and I actually feel kind of bad that I lost to him twice, because I think this deck actually has a really good matchup in the Standby Nikkei, because we turn off the Modernia rest counter, and like we get so much power, we like climb their entire board, so like it just feels really good. But like I just like lost to him twice, so it's like really unfortunate. I don't think this deck is bad into that matchup. I actually think it's like one of our better matchups. But it's just somehow I just lost twice, so it is what it is. It's Weiss. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video and letting me just kind of share my latest little kitchen homebrew kind of deck. I'm just really happy with this. I'm really happy I was able to figure this deck out, rep it, and do so well with it. And if you guys are interested in playing Bane Dream, I would strongly suggest you give this deck a try, even over the Dolores. I do think the Dolores is weaker than this deck. I do think this is like the bleeding edge for English meta Bane Dream, and you gotta get on the train. Like they're gonna ban this eventually. Like they're gonna probably do the JP ban list for English. So like you gotta experience the power that JP never felt. You gotta experience it before they hit it, you know? Alright, so yeah, next week we are going to be back onto our regular Tressa's schedule with the release of Azure Link. So you're going to expect, you know, box openings, deck profiles, gameplay matches. So, you know, be sure to stay subscribed and stay tuned for all of that. But until then, this has been Chairman on the Tressa channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!